Shalom Aleichem, Chaverim V'Yedidim. This week's Haftarah, we start the Haftarah with the beginning of Malachim. Melech David Zokein Ba Yamim, and the Mefarshim say that the reason we read this Haftarah is because it's similar to what's mentioned in the Pasuk, that Avram Zokein Ba Yamim. And we know the Chassidish Taich Ba Yamim means he came with full days that were full. He was able to pinpoint in every moment of the day what he accomplished. And that's our bracha for each and one of us, that we shouldn't let that time go by. But in the Haftarah, we find an interesting pasuk. The pasuk speaks about how David HaMelech had some of his sons rise up against him. And the pasuk says about Avshalom. So the pasuk says, Avshalom rose up against him, and then there was Adonijah ben Chagis. He was also, and the whole complaint, now Bathsheba came to complain that he's outdoing Shlomo Melech. Shlomo Melech was promised to be the king. But then the pasuk says, why did he have the chutzpah? What was the chutzpah that Adonijah knew, knowing that David HaMelech promised Shlomo to be the king after him? What caused Adonijah to have that chutzpah? She says the pasuk, because lo yatzavei aviv miyamav. He was a child that everything he always did was correct. His father never made him feel bad, never rebuked him for what he did. He never said, Madua kacha asisa, why did he behave this way? V'gam, and another problem was, hu toiv ter ma'od. He was a very good looking guy. So the pasuk is saying three things. First of all, his older brother was Avshalom, was a troublemaker, so he didn't have too many good role models to learn from. And then he himself was a good-looking person, and a person who takes care of his physical appearance so much. We find even by Yosef that V'hunar ben Shvayas Shana, so Rashi says Oisa Maisa Nairis. And then the most important one is, he felt that if his mind says, I deserve to get whatever I get, whatever I want, I deserve it. Why does a person have that feeling? Because from when he was a little kid, his father never rebuked him. His father never told him, you're wrong. So the first and foremost lesson we have from this is every parent has a chiyuv to educate his children. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you got to tell your child, my dear child, what you're doing is not proper. And especially in midas, especially in behaving, I heard today a phenomenal vart that a Chassidish twist and a taich in the Mishnah. We say every morning in the davening, Rabbi Shmuel Aimer b'shleish esrei midras haTorah nedreshes, and it's literally talking about the different ways how to learn a pasuk and how to learn a halacha. But I heard a Chassidish twist to this. Rabbi Yishmael says, B'shleish esrei, when a child becomes a bar mitzvah boy and he's 13 years old, the first thing he has to know is midas haTorah nedreshes. The Torah is asking you to be a mensch. The Torah wants you to make sure that your midas are refined. Your midas are good. And this is what Avshalom was lacking. Rav Meir Miprim Mishlan actually had another way how to interpret this pasuk. He's not that David HaMelech not only David HaMelech didn't invest too much time to rebuke him, but he says a different shot. Lo yatzavai, what never bothered him, Aviv. It never bothered this kid, this Adonijah, it never bothered him, how is this going to look? How is my behavior going to look to my father? He ran his own show. It didn't care what Aviv, Isa Pasnish, for a person of Ben Melech, and to fight your father's wishes, pasnish. Aviv, whatever my father thought about, whatever my father says, doesn't really bother me. So lo yatzavei Aviv, the fact that every yid has to be proud, and every yid has to be walking around. He says, I'm a Ben Melech, I'm the Eibishter's children, and we have to make sure that we make our Father in heaven proud. And then there's a beautiful pirush from Rabbi Yonasan Eibshitz, and it's also brought from the Chidah, that he says that the reason this all came about, that Adonijah was able to stand up against David HaMelech, because the pasuk says that he was a good-looking person. And the Gemara in Sanhedrin says in the Gemara Kuf Zayin that David nasa eshes yifas tayer. David married a very beautiful woman, and from that beautiful woman, he had the children Adoniyo and Avshalom. And those two children didn't behave properly. Because Chazal say, anybody who marries a very beautiful woman, and usually it's referring to that's all that matters in the shidduch, then the children don't behave that way. So perhaps, says the Rabbi Yonasan Eibshitz and the Chidah, this is what the pasuk is saying. Lo yatzaviv aviv miyamav. David never told his children Adoniyahu off, because he couldn't tell them Madua Kachasisa. Why did you he couldn't tell them off what they're doing, because he was afraid they were going to respond back to him. We are a product of what you made. You did. Because you married a Yefas Toyer, that's why we became who we are. So David lo yatzavim miyamav, because he knew that they're going to respond and say, why did you marry your Yefas Toyer? The bottom line is, if you see your children need a little pep talk and need to have a little rebuke, remember the big picture. Remember that then lo yatzavim miyamav, look what happens, and if you invest time in the chinuch in your children, you'll have a lot of nachas.